Good luck, Dr. Benson. You're gonna do great.
Thanks.
All right. Got lots of people fading in here. We'll just give it just a couple more seconds while the software tries to. There's lots of people trying to join, so give one more minute. Awesome, awesome. Thank you all for taking the time to join us tonight. We're really excited for this webinar, actually. We've had this planned for a good amount of time, and we're very, very grateful to have Dr. Benson out of Las Vegas join us tonight. She's been a part of DIBS AI for quite some time. She's been using the Pitts21 Pro brackets for a good amount of time now, and she has wonderful experience with utilizing technology in her office, and we're excited to hear what she has to say about that tonight. Before we jump into the details there, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Caden Bodley. I'm the Director of Sales here at DIBS AI, and it's a very exciting time to be with you. As far as what the plan is for tonight, I'm going to present just a very, very brief intro of DIBS AI. We'll have a little presentation from OC Orthodontics as well, talking about some of their brackets. And then we will turn the majority of the time over to Dr. Benson, so she can go over her experience. This is a webinar where we are offering CE credit, thanks to OC Orthodontics for providing that. So at the end of this webinar, we will go ahead and provide you guys with the information to get that credit. We have a couple more trickling in here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will get started with this. All right. Okay. Perfect. Well, again, we're happy to partner with OC Orthodontics on this webinar. We have a great relationship with them. It's very, very easy to get your bracket rep to send us your brackets and utilize your preferred brackets with DIBS AI. And we're grateful for Ortho Classic to be able to provide that seamless integration and for all of the partnership that we do with them. So with that said, I'd like to start off by talking about the difference between a hammer and a nail gun and the efficiencies that it provides. I recently on my own home just put together framed all the windows and put some frames up around the just to make it look a little better than builder grade. And I did not start off with a nail gun, and I learned my lesson quickly. Lots of time, lots of inefficiency. And the whole time I was thinking about how I could be more efficient. So fortunately, I was able to obtain a nail gun and I was able to pound through that a lot quicker. And that is the picture that to me is painted as Dr. Benson is going to go through her webinar today, is how she's really utilizing the technology and the tools that she has to be able to be more efficient and to be able to provide the magnificent smiles that she's literally an artist. She will talk about that today, and it's beautiful. In addition to that, DIBS AI just completed a very large study, and we received a quote from it about how it was so transformative for this specific doctor's office, and saying how it just completely transformed the efficiency of their office. And based on that study, it was a little over 1,300 cases that we collected data on, random cases. And what we were able to see is a significant reduction in treatment time, which is good. Of course, we want to see a reduction in treatment time, especially the patients. But the more important metric that we were able to see was the reduction in overall appointments. We were seeing about a 4.17 number of months in reduction of overall treatment time, which, as you can imagine, significantly impacts your chair time savings. We came to a number of about $1,043. And that's, of course, multiplied by your cost per appointment times the number of appointments saved. So if you have any interest in this new study that we just conducted, we're happy to get that for you. But you really can see how this can transform your office. And anyone who's new, who has not done any indirect bonding, anything like that, the workflow for DIBS AI is very, very straightforward. It's a streamlined process. I like to say that it's very similar to your aligner system. You're essentially taking your braces to the digital level. So you submit an RX form through our portal, DIBS AI, an AI as well, our AI as well as a human technician will provide an initial case setup for you, and then doctor will go into the software and make adjustments and approve the case, which is all in real time. And that's what we're so excited to watch Dr. Benson present on today is how she approves cases, and how that goes. So I'm not going to dive into the details there. And then we do 3D print the trays. So we have our own lab. We're located here in Utah. We do everything here. We 3D print your trays. We work directly with your bracket reps so that we can keep an inventory of your brackets here in stock. We insert your brackets for you, no additional cost there, and then we ship your trays out to you to your office. And what's immaculate is that this is all done within 5 to 6 business days. So very quick turnaround time. You should be bonding your patients within 2 weeks. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and transition over to Sophia. She is going to have a little presentation by Eric, and I will turn the time over to you, Sophia.
Perfect. Thank you, Kaden. Yes, hello everybody. Hope everyone's having a beautiful Wednesday afternoon. My name is Sophia Lovato. I do the ortho education and corporate development here at the manufacturing facility in beautiful Oregon. We manufacture all of the Pitts products and much more. So if you're interested, please connect with me after the course. We are also accredited by AGD, and we are going to offer 1 CE credit at the end of this course. There's going to be a QR code to scan, and there is going to be a code, so I'll put that in the chat later on in the discussion. But for now, I'm going to turn on a video from our Director of Marketing, Mr. Eric Ackerman, who can explain a little bit more about OC Orthodontics. Thanks. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Ackerman, the Director of Marketing here at OC Orthodontics, and we're so excited to be partnered with DIBS AI to bring you this amazing webinar presented by Dr. Benson. Okay. The Pitts21 Pro system combined with DIBS AI creates a complete digital aesthetic solution that brings together advanced bracket technology and AI-driven precision to deliver beautiful, predictable smiles with greater confidence and efficiency. By combining the Pitts21 Pro's early 3D control, including precise torque, tip, and rotational control, with the accuracy of DIBS AI digital bonding, practices can achieve stronger clinical control from the very beginning of treatment. The result is a more accurate bracket placement, fewer adjustments throughout treatment, and a smoother path to exceptional finishing results. The Pitts21 Pro with DIBS AI creates a premium patient experience by combining broad arch development, enhanced smile aesthetics, and a digitally guided treatment planning that helps build confidence and trust from the very first consultation. Together, the system improves treatment efficiencies through progressive slot design, early square wire engagement, and a customized AI-generated bonding trays. This allows practices to move through the treatment more efficiently with fewer appointments, less chair time, and a more predictable finish. Practices using Pitts21 Pro with DIBS AI can reduce treatments by an average of 4 to 6 appointments. The Pitts21 Pro with DIBS AI helps practices reduce overhead, simplify team training, and create greater consistency across doctors and staff through predictable digital workflows that support long-term scalable growth. When the advanced control of Pitts21 Pro is paired with the precision of DIBS AI, practices benefit from faster case finishes, more predictable outcomes, and a noticeably elevated patient experience. It is the kind of transformation that patients immediately recognize and get excited about from the moment they see their new smile. OC Orthodontics has found the partnership with DIBS AI to be a natural fit for Pitts21 because it supports our mission of creating wow-worthy smiles and transforming patients' lives. At OC, we see ourselves as a wellness-focused orthodontic company dedicated to designing and manufacturing and delivering transformational solutions for progressive orthodontists who prioritize patient-centered care, facial aesthetics, and exceptional treatment outcomes. By combining innovative technology with philosophy centered around confidence, health, and beautiful smiles, we help practices create an elevated experience. We believe wellness orthodontics is all about transforming patients' lives by focusing on three of the most important factors in orthodontics. The physiological needs. OC orthodontic systems support natural tooth movement with low force mechanics, promoting faster results, less discomfort, and healthier bone alignment. Patients benefit from improved bite function, jaw stability, and long-term dental health. Emotional needs. A beautiful smile from OC Orthodontics delivers a powerful emotional reward, greater pride, genuine happiness, and the kind of wow moments that boost how patients feel and how others respond to them. Psychological needs. The confidence gained through OC Orthodontics goes beyond looks. Patients experience elevated self-esteem, reduced social anxiety, control of their appearance, and their personal success. We're so excited for you guys to watch this webinar presented by Dr. Benson, and we hope it provides valuable insight into achieving more efficient treatments and wow-worthy smile outcomes. We'd also like to invite you to explore our upcoming live educational courses. As you continue your journey through this clinical growth, we have Advanced Aesthetics, Transforming Lives Through Progressive Orthodontic Care. Our upcoming events include one in Atlanta, New York, Austin, Salt Lake, Nashville, and Dallas. Go ahead and scan that QR code if you'd like to learn more about those events. I'd also like to invite you to join our completely free OC Ambassador Group. It's a peer-to-peer community designed to help orthodontic professionals connect, share ideas, exchange experiences, and access resources that support continued learning, growth, and inspiration. The community is fun, easy to use, and built around social platforms that you're already using every day, including Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, making it a really simple way to stay connected with your peers and the broader OC community. Once again, scan that QR code if you'd like to join, completely free. And if you're ready to take that next step in clinical results to the next level, we encourage you to explore the Pitts Masters Continuum. This unique educational experience gives you the opportunity to work closely with Dr. Tom Pitts and gain advanced insights into creating wow-worthy finishes and highly aesthetic treatment outcomes. Throughout the program, you'll learn from a variety of distinguished orthodontic speakers while collaborating with peers who share a passion for progressive orthodontics. Participants also have the opportunity to present two of their own cases for the group analysis and treatment planning discussion. It creates an interactive learning environment that's focused on the real world. Once again, scan the QR code if you're interested. And lastly, I'd like to highlight our Scholar Assist program. This program is designed to support progressive orthodontists who are passionate about continuing to grow professionally and advance their clinical education. Scholar Assist provides financial support through a complimentary course admission opportunities for scholarship assistance towards the Pitts Masters Continuum. The goal is to help dedicated clinicians continue to develop their skills and knowledge needed to create exceptional patient outcomes and wow-worthy smiles. We review applications quarterly and go through them. Everyone that doesn't get selected for maybe the master's program is available to maybe go to a free event, one of our 2-day courses or 1-day courses. So visit our website if you'd like to learn more about that. Thank you all for spending a few minutes with me today. I hope I've been able to share some helpful information and give you a better look at the exciting opportunities and resources available through OC Orthodontics. And now it's time for the star of the show, Dr. Benson.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Okay, I know that was a lot of information, everyone. So if anyone has any questions about resources, I'll put my email in the chat and on to you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right, hi everyone, welcome. I'm Dr. Sally Benson, orthodontist and owner of The Art of Braces. Just wanted to start off by saying thank you to each and every one of you for being here today. Whether you're brand new to explore indirect bonding or you're already using DIBS and you want to level up your Pitts21 setups, or maybe you're somewhere in between, I think you're really going to walk away with some practical takeaways today. So before we dive in, I just wanted to share a little bit about who I am outside of the office, because I think it says something about how I approach orthodontics too. This is my husband and me. We are avid rock climbers and skiers. So of course we had to have a ski wedding on the top of a ski mountain in Jackson Hole. I think this is a pretty accurate metaphor for how I run my practice. I like to go all in, and I embrace things that are a little unconventional, and I'm not afraid to try something new. Right, so what we're going to cover today, I'm going to start by sharing how I got started on my journey with Pitts, and then also my digital orthodontic journey with indirect bonding. And then we're going to talk about the DIBS advantage and why indirect bonding changes everything. I'll also go over some tips to get started in terms of hardware setup, workflow shortcuts, and then I'm going to talk about my workflow specifically with the Pitts21 bracket prescription and the P21 nuances that I think you need to consider when doing your indirect bonding setups. I'll also cover a few clinical training tips, and then lastly, we're going to go through a real-world case example and show you how I do a setup. So my journey with Pitts started back in January of 2018 when I met Dr. Tom Pitts, and this changed everything for me. I started off by attending, I think it was one of the one-day courses, and that lecture changed the direction of my practice and my philosophy on smile design forever. This is when I first heard him say that orthodontics is an art first and a science second, and that really hit home with me. And it was just perfect timing because 2 months later is when I opened my practice, which was already named the Art of Braces. Aside from being an avid rock climber and skier, I'm also a photographer. So all of those photos that you see in my waiting room are photos that I've taken. And I wanted my patients, when they walked into my practice, to feel like they could appreciate me as an artist to design their smile and not just as a clinician. And so that's why the Pitts21 bracket system and treatment philosophy really resonated with me. The other thing that I was big on when I opened my practice was technology. We were impressionless from day one. I didn't even build a wet lab. Jumped in with 3D printing, started fabricating all my own aligners in-house with ULab. And you can just say that in general, I'm a very early adopter of new technologies and custom solutions to optimize efficiency to create better patient outcomes. And when I adopt things, I like to go all in on them. I think it's really important that if you're going to try any of these new technologies, you can't just dabble in it. Otherwise, you'll become a jack of all trades and a master of none. So I highly encourage, if you're going to try DIBS, definitely go all in, and that's where you're going to get the most out of it. So I've used a lot of indirect bonding systems over the years, and I actually didn't start off with indirect bonding for brackets on the buccal. I actually started with indirect bonding systems for brackets on the lingual. So we were well versed with InBrace and even tried Brava and Brias. And my first indirect bonding system that I tried with brackets on the labial were actually light force brackets. And this appealed to me because I thought, okay, a 3D custom bracket, that has to be better, right? But just in my hands, light force was a disaster in my clinic, and I would not go back to it. Like, I cannot wait until I debond my last light force case, to be honest. I found myself really missing my Pitts21 brackets, especially with a lot of the crowding cases. I just found they weren't unraveling as quickly. And so DIBS has been just like a godsend for me because it lets me combine the advantages of indirect bonding while still being able to use my favorite brackets. So when you marry the advantages of indirect bonding with your favorite brackets and the efficiencies of the Pitts21 Pro brackets, it's a real win for your practice. There's a lot of advantages with DIBS. First is, I think we're all used to doing our aligner setups and starting with the end in mind. And I think with using DIBS, it's a huge advantage to be able to start with your final smile design before even bonding. And with DIBS, you can create, you can turn your Pitts21 brackets, which are a one-size-fits-all solution, you can turn it into a semi-custom bracket prescription through the use of custom bases, which I'm going to get into in a little bit here. And because of that, it does allow you to finish your treatment even faster. I do find that my cases are taking about 4 to 6 fewer appointments on average, and they're all finishing either slightly ahead of schedule or on time. And then the other thing that's really nice about indirect bonding is you get a lot of your doctor chair time back. Because the team has the indirect bonding jigs, they can reuse them. If a patient ever has a broken bracket, they can reuse the IDB jig to fix the bracket without ever calling you to the chair to verify the bracket position. And so because there's less chair time for you, you can use all of that time that you gain back to work on your setups. I think one of the downsides of having an all digital practice that some doctors shy away from is the fact that it does result in a lot more digital homework. But I have found a way to change the way that I practice by rearranging my schedule. So what I mean by that is, in the past, I wouldn't want my staff to schedule more than one direct bonding at the same time, because that would take a lot of chair time for me to come to the chair to check the brackets. But now I actually purposefully arrange my schedule so that all of my bondings are stacked horizontally. And so with that, I get a really nice chunk of time, usually about almost an hour of uninterrupted chair time every day to go work on my digital setup. So that way I don't have all this homework outside of the office to work on the setups. The other thing that indirect bonding is great for is those patients who have really small mouths or they can't open very big. I'd always have it, I'd find it really difficult to visualize my sevens on those cases. Just couldn't stretch their cheeks very well to get good visibility. And so indirect bonding makes it so much easier to accurately place brackets on those patients who just can't open very big. So I talked about custom bases, and so I want to talk about some of the issues that I find with the Pitts21 bracket prescription. And if you've used Pitts for a while, then perhaps you'll share some of my sentiment with this. I often would have some torque errors with my upper twos. I find myself constantly putting palatal crown torque in my upper twos, even when they're flipped upside down. Another issue is I would constantly get my lower sevens in crossbite. I wish that there was a self-ligating lower six. I'm told that is coming soon. I don't know when, but until then, using these custom bracket bases is a great workaround. The other thing that I constantly find is an issue with the Pitts21 bracket prescription is my lower threes constantly needing a mesial out correction. So you can see here on this screenshot of the setup, you can float your bracket away from the tooth to create this semi-custom bracket base. So this is an example here. This is a case setup that I did, and you can see when the brackets were flush with the tooth in the initial setup, these teeth aren't quite aligned perfectly. Like, it just depends on the patient's anatomy, right? The Pitts bracket prescription works pretty well in a lot of cases, but sometimes the variation in anatomy creates some of these little nuances that result in you needing to do more wire bends to finish the case. But you can help eliminate some of these wire bending appointments by creating custom bracket bases. So in this example, you can see here the lower left 4 and 5 ideally need to be stepped in a little bit. And then over here, you can see my lower sevens were lacking overjet, which is a common issue. And so this is what I did on that setup. I just moved those 3 teeth in, and this might look a little scary to you, how much this bracket, especially on the lower 7, is floating off of the tooth. This is that exact patient in real life. I just bonded her last week and took this photo. You can see here what this amount of offset translates to clinically. So the black light really shows here just how thick that custom bracket base is on those lower 7s. And I have not had any issues with the bond failures as a result of making my bracket bases this thick. So this has been a really huge game changer for me with the Pitts21 bracket prescription specifically, because before I was either doing a toe in on my lower 7s, which is not quite right. when you really want a step in, or I would completely remove the lower left 6 bracket and swap it with a self-ligating bracket from another brand. So doing the custom bracket bases has completely eliminated that issue for me. So just some tips to get started. I highly recommend using a very large monitor and having a dual screen setup. So the reason why I like 2 screens is because if you're in the DIBS software, you're really just looking at teeth floating in space and you have no frame of reference of the face or the lips. And as Pitts doctors, we are artists. And I think it's very important for us to see the patient's face in the records while we're bonding. So I like to keep the patient's records up on one screen and then my DIBS set up on the other screen. And then also when you're working in DIBS, you're going to be wanting to work predominantly in the predicted outcome view, which is another reason why I like having my initial records on the other screen so I can constantly have a quick comparison between the initial and the final. And then other tip that I have, and this goes not just for using DIBS, but really any software that you guys are using for doing your setups, master the keyboard shortcuts. This is going to save you so much time. It's dramatically faster than clicking. So learn the keyboard shortcuts for your software, use them always. And then the other tip I have is to schedule a DIBS training day. So you can have the DIBS clinical trainer come out and dedicate a full bonding day to your team training. And I think that's going to help a lot, especially if you're new to indirect bonding, or even if you've been doing it a while. Like we actually just had our DIBS clinical training a month ago, and we learned some new things as well. One of the things that I hear from other doctors who have tried dabbling in DIBS and saying that it didn't work out for them is that I think where they went wrong, because they told me that they had some issues with the premolar marginal ridge heights being off. And what I think is happening with a lot of these cases is they're focusing too much on the bracket height measurements. And when I'm doing my setup, which you'll see in a moment here, I really don't look at the bracket height measurements at all. I trust my eyes. Like, smile design is an art. You're the artist. Trust your eyes above all else. The bracket height measurements are really just a guideline, and just keep in mind that if a patient has really worn anatomy, you really can't trust those bracket height measurements too much. So my DIBS workflow, I always start in the predicted outcome view. I want to start with the end in mind. And then you're going to want to select your bracket height preset. All of these SAP, SAP+, SAP++, those are already built into the DIBS software for you to choose from. You also want to choose your wire size and your arch form. Now, these 3 things are actually usually already pre-selected for me because my assistants will choose them when they are uploading the case for me. The next thing that I do is I turn off all of the brackets and the lines. I like to look at the tooth positions with naked teeth only. I find the brackets and lines to be very distracting because, again, this is all art, right? And we want to see how this final smile is going to look, which is going to be without brackets. And then we talked about the keyboard shortcuts. So the QWERTY keys, which are the first 6 keys on the upper left of your keyboard, those are going to help you cycle through each view, like frontal, upper, lower, right, left, etc. So you can just quickly cycle through those keys with your left hand as you correct the bracket positions. Bonus, if you guys have a CBCT, for an extra $25, you can actually have DIBS integrate the CBCT data into the DIBS setup. That way you can visualize your roots, and it just kind of helps you confirm more accurate tooth positions. Once I have finished finalizing my tooth positions, only then do I actually turn my brackets back on, and I return to the initial view. And at this point, I'm checking for collisions and just checking to make sure that all my bracket positions look reasonable. And sometimes I'll tweak it a little bit based on what I see in this view. So one thing that I highly recommend doing is expect that there's going to be a learning curve. I said that I haven't eliminated all of my repos. I'm still learning and getting better. But one thing that I highly recommend doing is if you ever have a case that requires repos or doesn't come out quite as you expected, go back and review your original setup. I think this retrospective evaluation is where the real learning happens, and you're going to quickly see where your setup decisions diverged from the clinical outcome. Okay, so just a few clinical training tips. Again, anticipate bond failures initially. Indirect bonding is very technique sensitive, so just plan for some bond failures initially and leverage having that DIBS clinical trainer come to visit your office to build team confidence. When we had the trainer come out a month ago, one new tip that we learned that has been a game changer was to use a tray warmer. So you can actually buy this tray warmer from DIBS. And when you put the indirect bonding trays on the warmer, it makes them softer and more flexible and a lot easier for your assistants to remove without disturbing the bracket position. And also, I recommend using a black light to help you visualize the flash removal after the assistants have bonded it. And then this is a new feature that DIBS just came out with that I'm excited about. I think they might have taken a page out of Lightforce's book here. What we would do traditionally is we would always cut our indirect bonding trays into the individual teeth to use for whenever a patient had a broken bracket to repair it. However, this didn't always work great when there was severely crowded teeth, especially with the lower incisors. By the time we sectioned the trays, the jigs just became so small that it left a little bit too much room for interpretation in terms of where that jig should sit on the tooth. So for an extra $6 per arch, you can actually order individual indirect bonding jigs now, which I think is a really great upgrade to the DIBS system. Okay, so now I'm going to walk you guys through a real-world case setup. Okay, so the first thing you're going to see when you open up your DIBS case are the brackets, and normally I have my assistants do this for me. When they're submitting the case, they will choose the brackets, but if for whatever reason you need to change the brackets, like maybe you want to do clear brackets instead, or maybe you want to invert the upper or lower 3 to 3, then you can do so over here. And then I also have my assistants choose the SAP plus bracket positioning for me, but if I want to change that, we can go to the treatment options over here. I've already determined for this patient that I want to do the SAP plus on the top, and then I have a tendency to choose deep bite for the bottom, just because I find that with extruding the upper incisors with the smile arc protection, we have a tendency to have a premature anterior interference if I don't put the lower 2 to 2 at 3.5. So I will go ahead and select SAP plus on the top and deep bite on the bottom there. And then the next thing that we are going to do now is I actually like to look at the teeth naked. So I'm going to remove the brackets as well as the lines, and I recommend that you take a look at these keyboard shortcuts here. It's going to save you so much time to use these keyboard shortcuts instead of clicking on everything. So my left hand is always on my keyboard, my right hand on the mouse or on the arrow keys. So B is for bracket and L is for lines. And the first thing that I look at is just this frontal view. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the first tooth here in the upper right 7. And you're going to hold down the Alt key. And if you move the up and down arrows while you're holding the the Alt key, then you can change the torque. And then if you let go of the Alt key and you're just moving the arrow keys, then you can change the height of the bracket. And then you can click or hit the Tab key to move on to the next tooth. And so we're just going to go through one by one and correct the torque and the height of all of these back teeth here. And I'm just using the Tab key to move from tooth to tooth. And at this point in time, I'm really just using my eye. I'm not really paying too much attention to the bracket heights up top there. And then if we want to change the tip on this tooth, we're going to hold the Alt key and use the left and right arrow keys. So Tab. And so I'm At this point, I'm just trying to get this smile arc set in place because we're starting with aesthetics and the end goal in mind of the smile. And hitting tab to go to the next tooth. Okay, and then from this point, I'm going to use my QWERTY keys to kind of cycle through my views here. And if you want to rotate your model, if you move your mouse below this bar here, it allows you to put some yaw in the model without having to cause a tilting of the model upward and down. So it's really nice to use this area to just kind of go back and forth here. So I'm going to actually look at the upper occlusal view next, and I'm going to look at the torque on these front teeth here. And again, we're just holding the Alt key, and here we'll also look at the rotations of the teeth. Now I know I don't have the brackets turned on here, but if you look at where these green arrows here are showing, that's actually where the bracket would be. If I turn the bracket on, you'll see the green arrows line up right with the center of the bracket. So if I were to try to rotate this tooth, which you can also do by using these arrows over here, you can see how the bracket stays in the middle. But let's say I wanted to rotate this tooth even more, and see how the bracket starts getting very distal, but I say I want to keep the bracket more in the middle while rotating the tooth. I can hold down the shift key while turning the tooth, and I'll turn the bracket back on so you can see this. I can hold down the shift key while turning this, and that will create a custom bracket base. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back to keep that where it is, and I'm going to work on the torque on this tooth here. Okay, now we're going to look at the bottom view. And so I'm really going to zoom in on these lower incisors here. I find that pretty much always you do have to change the torque on these lower incisors to get them to match. I'm just looking to see that I can see about the same amount of facial tooth structure on each of these. And then I will also rotate the model like this. I find looking at it at this angle is really the best angle for me to see the heights on the lower premolars. So I'm going to move my premolars a little bit here. Okay, and then now we're going to look at the tip on these guys here. And again, I'm just going through with the tab key to advance to the next tooth, and holding down Alt to change the tip, and using the left and right keys on the keyboard. This way it's a lot faster than clicking, in my opinion, with the mouse. And again, I am at this point in time, I'm not really paying too much attention to the bracket heights up here. I'm doing this all by eye. In this view, you can also see how the marginal ridges are a bit off here. So I'm going to take a look at this from the side and see what's going on. Now you can click or type the M letter to have these lines show up, and this, you can use these to kind of help you guide the heights. And just keep in mind, it's just a guide. The lines don't always line up together perfectly, so at the end of the day, I still trust my eye over those red lines, and I don't try to obsess too much over getting these lines to match. They're really just there as a guideline for you. And I noticed that sometimes in the software, you can see that just happened when you're changing the tip. Sometimes it changes the torque at the same time too. I think it's just like a glitch, and you just have to fix it after it does that. Okay, so now we're going to turn both arches back on, and now I'm just cycling through the QWERTY keys, the QWERTY on my keyboard, and just making sure that everything looks good. So looks like we need to tighten up the occlusion a little bit here too. From this view, I'm seeing that it looks like this patient has a bolt-in discrepancy, and I'm going to need to do some IPR on the bottom There's not really a great way to simulate IPR on here, but we can at least adjust the bite here by clicking bite adjust to show how it would look if we were to do the IPR and ran some elastics to bring this forward so that we can get these back teeth to fit together a little bit better. Now from here, I can work on getting this occlusion to be locked in a little bit tighter here. And then we'll just do the same thing on the other side. Okay, and you'll see here because I advanced the mandible, we're having a lack of overjet, but I know that in real life I'm going to be doing some IPR here to correct the Bolton discrepancy. And I also really like to look at this posterior view right here, and I'll turn the bottom brackets off because I find that this is the best view to see the torque on these molars, which you can see here the software does have a tendency to really have too much palatal crown torque on the molars. I'm finding that I consistently always have to do some buccal crown torque to fix my my cusp here. So this view is really helpful to see that. Okay, and then now we're going to turn both arches back on and check the bite again. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. And then now at this point, if you have a CBCT, you can pay an extra $25 to have the roots integrated. So I will turn that on just to verify that everything I did looks reasonable. So I'm looking at this canine, for example, and I'm going to correct the tip on this. Sometimes it doesn't pull the data over on all of the teeth for whatever reason. Like in this example, you can see it didn't get the roots on the lower fours. And then on this upper left one, I can see that my root tip is looking a little mesial, but I'm going to choose to leave it there for the sake of the aesthetics, to keep the incisors, the crowns looking a little bit more aesthetic. Okay, and the other thing that we can see here is that we're starting to lack overjet as we get to the posterior teeth. Now I know clinically I am gonna most likely be coordinating these arch wires and constricting this lower arch form a bit here. But one thing that I do see pretty consistently with the Pitts bracket prescription is this lack of overjet, and sometimes even having the lower sevens in a crossbite. And so what I have found to be really helpful is I will actually take these teeth and I will retract like this. And you can see when I turn the bracket on, it does create a pretty large offset here. But as I showed in my slide deck earlier, this will turn into a really nice thick custom bracket base. And I have not had any issues with bond failures as a result of having these thick custom bracket bases. Now I'm holding the shift key here because I didn't like how that bracket was moving too far mesial. And I'm going to turn the brackets off again and rotate this tooth. Now you can see that I really like to work in the predicted view with the brackets off predominantly because I think that gives you the best visualization. I'm holding the shift key here to rotate that tooth more. Okay, so let's double check how that overjet is looking in the back here. So that's looking better. And again, I know clinically I'm going to be constricting this lower arch wire. And also we just have to keep in mind that we have the same wire chosen for both arches here. You can choose to do a different arch form on the lower arch if you wanted to. Like if I chose standard here, you can see what that does. But I just find that when I choose standard on the bottom, then it doesn't really fit either. Like you can see here, how I know I moved these lower sevens in, but if I didn't, it still doesn't always quite fit right. So I have a tendency to just keep the same arch wire for both arches. Okay, so I'm just gonna correct this rotation a little bit here. Okay, so now we're just gonna double check everything. Again, going back through the 6 views using the QWERTY keys on the keyboard. And once I'm happy with everything, then now is when I will do a side-by-side view. And this is where I really pay attention to the smile arc, and I'm looking at what changes we got. And I have my second monitor to the right here, and I'm looking at the patient's photos, and I can really see her current smile arc and how I want to change it. And so I just want to verify that I'm getting enough extrusion of these upper incisors. And so I'm looking at her photos now, and it looks like I actually want to go a little bit more. At this point, I'm pretty happy with how that's looking, so I will turn the brackets back on, and I'm actually going to go back to the existing view, and I'm going to look at each arch individually. And now what I'm doing here is I'm just checking that all of the bracket positions are looking reasonable, nothing too crazy. In her case, it doesn't look like any of her brackets are getting below the gum line. I'm also looking at from the occlusal view just to see if I have any custom bracket bases and that they look reasonable as well. And then we're going to turn the lower arch. And okay, so one thing that is kind of calling my attention is these brackets on the lower right 6, 7. They do look a little bit more occlusal than I would put them on if I were, say, direct bonding them. So I am just going to tweak the position of these brackets a little bit to where I think I would be putting them on clinically. And after I do that, I'm going to go back into the predicted view to verify that the changes I made still look okay. All right, so you can see how the effect that had on this lower right 6. Now it looks like it's too high. So it does look like in her case, we do need to keep that bracket a little bit more on the occlusal side, just with her anatomy. It looks like she has some really worn cusp tips here. So let's just double check her bite here. Okay, and then I'm just looking at this canine. Looks like I need to move this tube up a little bit. And at this point is when I kind of start looking at this bracket height chart here to compare my left and right side to make sure that they are relatively close to each other. But if the patient has really worn anatomy on some teeth, then these numbers are not going to be the same on both sides. Okay, so I'm going to turn the brackets back on, and again, going back to the existing view, now I'm checking for bracket collisions, which you can see that she's going to have some on her posterior teeth there. So at this point, I'm going to evaluate for bite turbos, and the cool thing about DIBS is you can actually put bite turbos right into your treatment plan, and there'll be some bite turbo molds in the IDB jig. We are limited here that we only have either a sphere or a rectangle. So this is how you would do a spherical rectangle. So you can right click when it turns red. It allows you to move the bite turbos. And then if you move your scroll wheel, then you can change the size of your bite turbos. So I'm going to go ahead and do bite turbos on the palatal cusp of her upper 6s. And so the way I size them is I will actually look at both arches, and I'm now looking through the intaglio surface of the opposing arch. And this allows you to really see just how much, how big you need to make your bite turbo. So I'll usually make it so that I'm seeing about this much poking through, and you just want to make sure that both sides are about the same size. Actually, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay, and then we'll just go back here and double check how that's looking. And this is just a guideline. I think in real life, we would probably never make a biturbo that is this exact shape, but it's a helpful starting point. And then after your assistant puts these on, they can kind of add a little bit more of either band lock or TKO, whatever material you have around the base. I do like my biturbos to be a little bit more conical so that the base is the widest part. And I'm seeing here, it looks like this biturbo is still a little bit too small. So I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so it looks about the same as the other side. And then again, check how it looks here. Okay, so that looks pretty symmetrical. Okay, and then one thing you can also use as a feature is the occlusal collisions here to check to make sure that all your bracket positioning is about where you want it. And again, we're seeing a lot of anterior interference here, which I think is artifact because we are going to do some IPR in the front to reduce that. I'm looking to make sure that all my contacts look about even, and it looks like we could probably use a little bit more contact here, so I'm just going to adjust that. Okay, and once I am happy with this, let me just move this one down a little bit. Once I'm happy with this, then I'm going to go ahead and hit next and submit my case, and it's going to tell you over here when you can expect this to arrive by. If at this point you need to rush it, then you can send your DIBS support team a message to have rush shipping. I believe it's an extra $9 if you want them to rush it so that it does 2-day shipping. So I'm going to go ahead and hit approve now, and it's going to have a very cute little celebratory pop-up, which I love, and that's it. That's how easy it is. Now, this recording is about 20 minutes because of me just explaining things as I'm doing it, but I would say on average it takes me about 10 to 15 minutes per case. And you will get fast overtime, and I usually have my assistants do a lot of the initial setup for me, and so that will save me a lot of time as well. Okay. All right, that was it. Here's my contact information. If anybody has any questions, you can feel free to email me. And at this point, I'd like to open up the floor for any questions from the audience.
Yes, Dr. Benson, we've got a handful of questions here for you. First one is, how do you show the bite after placing the bite bumps?
After placing the bite bump, so I click on both arches to show both arches, and then I flip the model upside down so that I can see the underside of the model, and then you'll see the bite turbos go through the bite that way.
Awesome.
That's actually a really helpful tip as well for when the brackets are going to end up a little bit subgingival. In the case that I showed, unfortunately, it didn't show any brackets that were going subgingival, and I know that's probably going to be a common question for my Pitts doctors, is a lot of times those upper two brackets do end up subgingival. And when you flip the model upside down, so you're looking at that intaglio surface, the underside, you'll see the bracket poke through, kind of like how we were seeing those biturbos poke through, and then you can appreciate how much your bracket is going to go subgingival in that case. And the nice thing about the indirect bonding trays is because of the way they're cut, the gingival portion of the bracket is exposed when you seat the tray, so you're able to really push the brackets underneath the gums and clean up the flesh that way as well.
And that is a common question that we do get, and you can go up to a half a bracket subgingival with
Yes.
DIBS AI. So awesome. What is your finishing wire size and arch form you plug in initially?
I always put in 1919 steel with a broad arch form for my finishing.
And then does DIBS AI setup show you'd have those lower 7 cross bites in the predicted outcome?
Yes. So that's one thing that I really love about DIBS AI is before I had DIBS, I never knew if I was going to end up with a lower 7 in crossbite or not. It just happened sometimes, and when it did clinically, I would just try to either do my toe in on my lower 7s, or I would take off my lower 6 brackets and then put on the self-ligating bracket at that point. But with DIBS, because you can see the outcome with the arch wire from the beginning, you know already from the very beginning if your 7s are going to end up in crossbite, and so you can proactively fix it before it happens.
Awesome. Let's see if there are any other questions. What is or excuse me, what bonding material do you use for your custom bases?
I use Go-To from Reliance.
Awesome. Okay, well, that is it as far as questions go, Dr. Benson. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining. I'm going to uh, go ahead and have Sophia. She's going to pull up the QR code for CE credit. So if you guys would like that CE credit, which I'm sure you would, Sophia will be able to provide that, and she'll have a QR code for you.
Wonderful. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Let's see. Okay, so all you have to do is scan the QR code, and you do have to type this code TP, and it's just the date today, 052726. And it will take you to a jot form. Please fill that out. And I did put my email in the chat, so if you have any additional questions or you need additional resources, feel free to reach out. I would be more than happy to answer any questions you had.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Sophia. And
Yes.
for any of you that are interested in more on DIBS AI, you're welcome to visit dibsai.com. There is an interactive demo on the website. There's a link to schedule a personal demo with our sales, and you will also be able to just get a lot more information, lots of webinars and additional information that you'll find beneficial. So, with that being said, I really, really appreciate you all. We all do appreciate you being here, taking your Wednesday evening, and we look forward to working together with more of you. We say thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kaden. Thank you, Dr. Benson. Have a lovely day.